Hello, corporate hustlers. Welcome to another awesome interview for the Corporate Hustle Virtual Summit. This is our 5th year bringing you all things awesome and great to help you as the corporate professional build your online brand and business. It is me, Demetria Samuels, your launch strategist, business coach, all things STEM, all things unapologetically living in the best of both worlds, getting money inside and outside of corporate America. Today, I have somebody here that, of course, is here in the down south, Georgia world with me, living out their best lives out here as an entrepreneur, a mother, a wife, all the things making it happen. But she's going to talk to us about that dirty little 3-letter word that some of you fear, but I tell you never to fear it because it is a good thing because it means that you're making money. Okay. So taxes, tax, we'll be talking all things financial, Black women in business, and all the good things on this particular interview for the Corporate Hustle Virtual Summit. So, Ms. Harvey, Alysha, tell the people about yourself and how you got into the tax business.
Oh, girl, absolutely. Thank you for having me. For anyone who does not know who I am, my name is Alysha Harvey, your tax advisor. I am the founder and CEO of Distinct Tax Consulting Group, where we handle everything from tax to accounting to business advisory. We have clients in over 30 states and 2 countries. So I definitely know what I'm doing. I've been in this thing over 10 years. My company hit 10 years last month. Woo woo. So we definitely beat all of the SBA statistics for sure. But ultimately, we really do focus on tax planning and making sure that our clients get to those rich people problems, right? And so get you out of the rut of, oh, I'm looking for the refund. I didn't get as much as I wanted. But ultimately, doing all of that. I'm also a speaker and author. I've wrote 1 book, have 1 workbook. And 2 more books in the making, so I'll drop those later. But definitely doing a little bit of everything out here. So
awesome! I love it. We love a good multiple streams. So, how did you find yourself in the tax business?
Well, I would like to say it was always in my DNA, but didn't know it. I went to school, of course, at Savannah State University. Studied accounting, went to Kennesaw State University, studied accounting again for my master's degree. But as I was growing up, it was one of those things that you knew your parents worked, you knew they were some type of professional, but we had that household where you didn't really ask, you didn't really know what your parents did. But I knew she worked in the transportation industry, right? But then I didn't know what her side hustle was. Both of my parents had a side hustle. Right. And so what I learned after I came to my mother, after I graduated, I was trying to help a friend out. My mom had all these receipts on the table. And obviously it was during tax season, but I didn't think about it like that. And I said, Mom, what are you doing? She said, yeah, can you help me calculate these receipts? And I said, oh, okay. It was for a transportation company. It was a trucking company. And I'm going through and I'm like, why do they have so many receipts? They didn't want to digitize this. And she's like, no, that's for this new age stuff. We don't do any of that. Well, as I'm sitting there talking with her, she says, oh yeah, I have a tax business on the side. And I said, what? You got a tax business? She said, yeah, I've been doing this for years. How do you think I got you all through college? And I said, wow, I had no clue. So then as, I'm going through life and trying to find my mojo in this tax industry. I was working as a sales and use tax accountant. I've worked as a bookkeeper, still dealing with tax, all of that encompassed within CPA firms. And when I told my mother, I said, hey, I want to start my own firm. And that was in 2013. And she said, sure, well, this is what I use. It's the software I use. I mean, she was giving me all the rundown, that stuff that you don't necessarily get. And usually, unless you're like on the wealthy side, right, where you have something that's passed down, you don't have to start from scratch. I was fortunate to have that, right, to not have to start from scratch. And so fast forward to 2017, my mother said, I'm shutting it down. And we merged our companies together.
I love it. You guys, unpack this, unpack it. Make sure, because I have a group that we meet, and we talk about how a generation ago had money, but we don't know how they got it. A lot of people do not know how their grandfather was able to leave land or this happened. They just know that they didn't have to get it from the mud or whatever, but they actually don't know how that all happened. And so I'm an advocate of find a way to not just give your kids the thing, but to tell them how you got it, right? That knowledge that your mother had was so much more valuable than even the degree she paid for you.
Listen,
okay,
it was way more valuable.
Way more valuable, right? She
Way
didn't even
more.
know that she was holding. They don't even know. Like, we don't know because it's the first time. Like, why would she think to, not burden you, but like, oh, I got 2 jobs, or, in their minds, what they don't realize is what you do have is information that can unlock, as it did for you, a whole entire generational wealth, wealth building, financial freedom, right? Unlimited, no caps on this salary. So that's awesome that she was able to wrap it up and then y'all were able to merge businesses. I love that. I hope you guys write a book together about it. I just love that.
You need to. Yeah. I'm sure she'll be for it. I'm sure she'll be.
You got to get mommy on a podcast or something to talk about it. But okay, so I know that my corporate minds, they're always like, listen. So let me tell you really quick. So this might help. I actually started my business because I was one of those people who, in the beginning, I used to be like, oh, let me get this refund check. Then one day I made over, let's just say at the time, because this was in my early 20s, I made over 60,000, right?
Okay.
And the people said, you owe us a little bit more money. What? Oh,
yeah, new tax bracket.
Right. But tax bracket hadn't changed, right? So I remembered when I was all the way 16 being an Avon consultant, all the way at this age, like with the random network marketing that, oh, wait, if I have a business, then I could find a way to lower my W-2 income. Right. And so that was my actual, like, one of my journeys into wanting to be an entrepreneur, because I knew that in my mind, entrepreneurs didn't have to pay as much taxes. Now I understand now that that's not necessarily exactly how it works. But in my mind at age 26, I was like, but if I'm an entrepreneur and I work, and still to this day, that's what I do, I don't have to pay as much taxes. So can we talk about at least the basics of the difference between, maybe high level, of course, the way W-2 employees are taxed versus the way an entrepreneur or a self-employed person is maybe taxed?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so glad you asked this, because you've never been to any of my presentations, but that's all I talk about, right? Changing that mindset of an entrepreneur, because when you are a W-2 employee, you are paid after everybody else. FICA, FUTA, SUTA, state, federal, right? Then you have your medical insurance. You have the disability insurance. You got your 401k. Everyone is paid before you do. So you get paid you're told that your salary is $100,000. But what is actually deposited into your bank account is roughly about $55,000, right? So the more money you make, that gap of how much you take home increases, right? Now, when you're an entrepreneur, well, let me back it up. That difference between that 100,000, that 55,000, those are all taxes. Those are all the benefits that you paid. But let's look at it from an entrepreneur standpoint. You made $100,000. We didn't pay tax yet. You can spend down that 100,000 as much as you like, right? We can eventually get down to say, hey, we need to pay taxes on 55,000, right? So let's say the W-2 is at 55, the entrepreneur is at 55. But see, the W-2 employee paid taxes on 100,000. The entrepreneur is paying taxes on 55,000, but we both made 100.
Yeah,
that's the biggest difference. So the entrepreneur every single year has the ability to ultimately determine how much tax you want to pay. But you got to do it in a legal, ethical, and in those right ways by 12/31 every year. And there's a way to do it.
Yes, you guys. get your pens and your papers out. Not really, because really what you're gonna have to do at the end of the day, you're gonna have to call a professional. But do take note on what to ask the professionals as this conversation ensues, because I don't want y'all thinking that you're gonna get out here and just be able to just do it. Like I said, I just started tracking everything. So we're gonna talk about that, the difference really quick between maybe a bookkeeper and a tax professional that's going to actually do your taxes. I just started tracking everything, and I figured if I just tracked everything and told my tax person, and let me say this, I had to get rid of H&R Block. Okay, let me tell y'all something. Okay, that was the first step to financial freedom. Okay, but we'll talk about that later. Definitely, maybe we'll talk about another difference, because people don't know when to use a bookkeeper versus your tax professional. So let's also debrief what that is, what that looks like.
Yeah, and I actually want to even dissect that a little bit more, right? So you have different levels of bookkeepers, different levels of tax professionals, right? So let's say you're a new business and you've been maybe open up to maybe 3 years, things are a little slow. You could probably stick with a bookkeeper that's a foreigner. You can probably stick with a bookkeeper from some of these companies like, Bench and QuickBooks. You can probably sustain with that, right, in the beginning. But as you're growing, and it's all really based on transaction, complexity, and gross revenue. It's all determined by that, right? It's a whole combination. But ultimately, you will need to get someone who's experienced as a bookkeeper. Now, even though we have firms out here that can do your bookkeeping, your accounting, your tax preparation, your tax strategy and planning, just know that it's going to cost a little bit more if you go to all-in-one, right? But it's also convenience, because you're like, I don't want to deal with a bunch of people. But now the biggest thing when it comes to the tax professional, right? So bookkeepers is really based on experience. Now with a tax professional, you got different levels. You have an unlicensed, and then you have licensed. There's 3 licenses under license. There's a CPA that everyone knows, certified public accountant. There's an EA, an enrolled agent, and then there's a tax attorney, right? So unlicensed does not mean incapable, right? Unlicensed doesn't mean inexperienced. It just means they don't have a license and they're not guided by a regulation. For a business, I always recommend to go with a licensed professional, one of those 3. Now, to determine which one of those 3 you need, an easy way, and again, it's all based on opinion, a tax attorney. I highly recommend to hire a tax attorney when you have tax trouble. However, there are tax attorneys out there that will help you just the same as an EA or a CPA with your tax situation. Now, an EA specializes in tax, right? So with an EA, you don't need a degree in accounting. You don't need a degree in tax, right? However, you do have EAs like myself that have degrees, that have worked at CPAs, who have CPAs on staff, right? And know the ins and outs of what a CPA provides. All EAs do not have that available, right? And then the other one we have is the CPA, the certified public accountant. That person has a degree, more than likely has probably a master's degree or close to it, and they took an exam. Now they have the ability to do, certified audits. They have the ability to do cost accounting, financial accounting, small business accounting, accrual, cash, all of that stuff, and tax. But do understand that every CPA does not specialize in tax, right? So when we dissect, who are we looking for? What are we looking for? You have to know those due diligent questions to ask when you're looking for a professional. What do you need? And sometimes you don't know what you need. So you got to ask the questions, what do you specialize in? That's the important question.
I love that. And then, like you just said, you guys, your CPAs are not just there to do your taxes normally. Because we're in a mastermind together, and as we branch out and you hear all the things, you're like, who can certify me as an investor and things of this nature? Usually it's your CPA, versus when you really want to dive deep into this taxes and you really want to get structure around it and a hold of it in tax planning, I think those EAs that just live and breathe and die taxes are where you want to go. That's just my opinion. But when you really want to, if you like, hey, taxes. Now, of course, you need a tax attorney when it's time to go deal with Mr. Man. But most of us can just do a payment plan if that's the problem. Most of you probably won't have actual tax issues if you're using tax professionals, right? Is when you out here trying to wing it on your own is usually when you run into said such activities. But or you out here doing things with that, you know, unadvised by a tax professional. But usually those EAs, and I just want to shout out to Black females in the EA in this business. Because I see online and in the internet space, sometimes we try to degrade or devalue what we don't know. Everybody's not a scam. Everybody's not a fraud. Just because you never heard of blah, blah, blah consultant doesn't mean that they just popped up yesterday and started doing taxes. Just ask them how long they've been doing it. Ask them for the receipts. You know, when you hear her background, she was literally didn't even know, but subconsciously was watching her mother do taxes for years. And that seeped in, right? Whether she was consciously or subconsciously doing it. So I just want you guys to always let Black businesses thrive and be great and go through the growing pains, if need be, of that we've traditionally given other businesses. She can't become H&R Block until you let her become H&R Block, you guys. Amen. Right? So you know what I mean? Amen. You can't do it until you let them become that. Y'all want them off the gate to be that. But I'll get off my soapbox about that. But just in general, service-based providers, I feel like sometimes in our communities have a harder stigma of getting through it all, because you think that people who look like this know how to do business realm better. And here on the virtual summit, y'all, I bring y'all Black female after Black female after Black female, letting y'all know that there's a service provider that looks like you, that understands you, and that is pumping back into your community. Okay, so now that we have discussed, we know who we're going to be dealing with. What is the difference between me just rolling up and getting my taxes done yearly versus tax planning?
Come on. So, you know, you hitting all my targets over here, my little triggers. You get me riled up. So, tax preparation is compliance. It's something that's required. It's something that you need whether you want to or not, right? Now, when we're going for tax preparation, we walk into that office, we upload our documents. Majority of us are just hoping and praying, please don't let me owe. Please don't let me owe a lot. Let me get just as much as I got last year, right? That's how you're feeling. But then also in that mind, you're thinking, okay, I got $10,000 last year. I'm gonna go buy this car. I'm gonna pay this debt off. You already spent the money before you even got it. So then when you hear that you owe, you're highly disappointed. Depression starts to set in. At that point, you're like, maybe I need to go talk to somebody else. Maybe you didn't do something right. But here's the thing. If we participated in any type of planning, we wouldn't walk into that door that way. We would have walked into that door saying, I know that I'm going to owe around $1,000. I know I'm going to owe around $100,000. Right? Or maybe I know I'm going to just break even and might get a refund for $100 and something. There's a huge difference. Now, when we're talking about tax planning, what I said earlier, that a lot of your entrepreneurs can determine, and you can write your own tax bill. That's what tax planning. Now, if you are a W-2 employee, if you have any type of discretionary income that's not tied to your bills, that's, you know, you just have a plethora of savings sitting around, you possibly can do some tax planning, some serious tax planning, right? But it's all about diversifying your income, shifting that income to somewhere else. Now, with tax planning, I love to tell people this is where the money resides, right? If you want to be able to keep the money in your pocket, keep the money in your circle, in your family, right? This is where you need to be. At some point, you're going to file your tax return and see a bill that you don't like. Immediately, I need you all to think, it's all about the mindset. I need you all to think, not what did they do wrong on my tax return? You need to think back, what should I have done before I got here? Because once 1231 hits, there's not much we can do. It's literally less than one handful of things we can do. But if you already owe and you're nervous, you're depressed, you're upset that you owe in the first place, any of those strategies that I tell you on one hand after 1231, you're not going to be able to do anyways, because you're already bootstrapped at some point if you're complaining or upset about how much you owe. Right now, with tax planning, we're talking about shifting of income. We're talking about retirement planning. We're talking about asset building, right? We're transferring that net profit from your business, right? Whether it's a side hustle, it's a main hustle, it's the bread and butter. We are talking about taking that net income number, transferring it into some type of asset or some type of investment that's going to come back to me more money later down the road, whether it's 5 years, 3 years, 10 years, whatever that may be, or I'm transferring into some type of asset that I can use currently, right? So there's so many different ways, right? So we have like a whole circle, and I can definitely share that with you so you can share it with your corporate hustles over here, right? So there's a whole cycle of things that you can do. Now, depending on where you are in your business, it determines how creative we need to be, right? When I say creative, I did not say unethical. I did not say tax fraud. I did not say illegal, right? It's being creative with various strategies based on your goals and how far you're willing to go. So tax planning is all about preparing for that tax deadline and to save on that tax liability.
Oh my gosh, you guys, this is so real, because let me tell you guys, I notoriously know that I overpay in taxes on my W-2s. And that's on purpose, because I know that I run a business that at any given time, I know I'm going to blow up. I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to blow up my business, right? But I notoriously know that I was doing that. And so I never feel the pressure of the April 15th deadline, because I already know they owe me money. So I'm always like, oh, that's what that deadline means nothing to me. I'd be like, the government don't care when I ask for my money back. They hoping I don't ask for my money back. So things like when you know what's going to happen, you're not under the same deadlines and guidance of the average American who's like, oh, it's April 15th. Oh my God, let me hurry up and, do all the things. And, they're really just, it's because you have not planned it out, or you don't know what the brackets are and what it looks like. And I know I fake nerd out on it at all, because I'm not a tax professional. And I always tell people I am not. Here's the thing. I want to talk about how, because, this is the internet. And I want people to know that usually what they're listening to on the internet, when they hear the glitz and glam of taxes, like let's go buy our Hummers and let's go get our G-Wagons, is actually somebody talking about tax planning and tax strategy, but just kind of glamorizing it, if that makes sense. So if you want to, dive into like when they hear those things, what that really translates to as far as whether that's tax planning, tax strategy, or maybe the creativity you were speaking on.
Absolutely. And because a lot of us are on social media of some sort, and we see a lot of celebrities out here buying stuff, traveling the world, buying property in Africa, going to Mexico, going to Puerto Rico. They're not doing this for glitz and glam. They have a tax strategist on their team that's telling them, hey, you can actually go buy this house. You can actually go buy this land, and we can go rent this out, and we can go do this with it. We can save tax on here, right? There's so many different ways. When I say creative, legal, and ethical, it's a real thing. And a lot of your entertainers are the ones that push those limits. And the IRS already knows, right? You all can Google it, you can research it. The IRS already knows that 60 to 80% of people are overpaying anyways. Because this tax law, this tax code is so long, you all. It changes every time we get a new set of congressmen and women. They are the ones that make the laws. And I'm not going to go getting political about it, but that's just ultimately how we get to the IRS. Congress makes the law. IRS enforces it. It is up to us as taxpayers to read the code, to understand the code, and to apply the code. And if you don't, you will end up overpaying. There is no reason why anyone should be upset that you have your, and I'm just calling out names, not to say that they're in this bucket, but you have your Bill Gates, and you have your entertainers, you have your Jeff Bezos and all these people, and you're like, oh my goodness, their percentage of tax that they pay is so low. Well, it's also because they paid a tax strategist. Every tax strategist is not $1 million. There are tax strategists out here that will work with you at your level. And it's really based on the whole financial picture. I look at it more, not just in tax strategy, but it also goes back to your mindset of money. What is your relationship with money, right? Because I have to get you to understand how you view money and what can you do with and do without to sacrifice so that we can get to that tax-free life, because it's possible. It's just how much work are you willing to put in?
I love it, you guys. And let me tell you, everything that we are talking about is real talk, especially for my corporate hustlers, because I always tell people, if you want to know what you should be doing every year in life, talk to a tax strategist, look at the tax codes, because when the government wants you to buy a house, they're going to give you a tax break. When they want you to have kids, they're going to put it in. Whatever the government actually wants you to be doing, or what you should be doing, or it's in the tax laws. It's in the tax regulations, the tax codes, whatever it is. When they want you to buy houses, when they want you to put windmills in your yard, when they want you to drive certain vehicles, they know how to incentivize the right people to do the right thing. When they want you to start businesses,
come on,
right? They're going to put it there. That is where you're going to see it show up. It's going to show up there. So I would say, I really hope that what you get out of this is, do not fear taxes. Don't fear taxes. Don't have like, oh my God, the IRS. It is your ticket to knowing exactly how you should be moving out here in these financial streets, because it will open up doors. When they want to get out here and talk about trust and all the things, all of that starts with tax strategists and tax planning. And that's probably why you never heard of the trust and heard of the things, because that usually comes out of tax planning and strategy. That doesn't come from just a random person you're talking to, or even your financial advisors. Usually a tax strategist has rolled up and said, listen, when you 80, they're going to charge you less, and this is what we're going to do. Right. So it's usually somebody in that realm that you really want to befriend or talk to or pay to actually do what needs to be done. Okay. Tell us any pet peeves you have about your industry.
Girl, let me tell you something. I love my tax professional brothers and sisters, but let me tell you something. The ones that are out here scamming make it hard for the ones that's out here doing it right. And I know that's in almost every industry, but tax is so sacred to a lot of people, right? And you're done wrong by one person. They scammed you. They took your refund. They, didn't take all the right deductions for you. They didn't educate you. It's just so much that's not properly done. And the unfortunate thing is, the reason why that is done so often, so frequently, is because tax professionals as a whole by the IRS is unregulated. You could honestly, I don't recommend it. I'm not advocating for it, but Demisha, if you wanted to go and open up a tax office right now, you could. No tax software is going to stop you. The IRS is going to allow you to get a P10 so that you can file. The IRS is going to allow you to get an EFIN so you can file. That's all you need initially. Just three things: a tax software, a P10, and an EFIN. And it's so frustrating because tax is ultimately law, right? There's a code that's written by lawyers, right? A lot of your congressmen and women are lawyers. So they're writing this code that a lot of people do not understand. right? And I know I take it as my life purpose to be able to translate this information in a way that you all understand it. And it's so important for us to be able to have that discernment to identify who's good, who's not good. But it's so hard with social media. Social media makes everybody seem like they're smart. They've been in this industry for years. They write it on their website. It makes it look great. That's the biggest pet peeve for me with this industry, because you have people out here that's doing it the right way, that's doing it for real, and have real testimonies of people they've been able to help. Whereas you have these other people that are fly by night. They just popped up a shop this morning, and now they got this long line because they paid ad money to get everybody here.
Yeah. Listen, it's three industries that are important and critical. It's kind of why I'm telling people to build businesses, right? Is because I want you to be able to dive deep into these three industries as far as your actual personal or business use. And of course, tax, credit, and insurance. These three industries are usually critical to financial wealth building, right? These three entities work together. So if you have somebody who understands all three and can bring it all together for you, that's always awesome and great. But I always feel like they get the bad rap as service providers because they're not regulated and people can take advantage of them at any given moment. I will say insurance is even more regulated than tax, which is very interesting. But insurance is even more regulated than taxes are. It's harder to sell somebody a mutual fund, but I can do your taxes. Anywho, right? So that's that. What about some advice that you want to give us out here, as we are, of course, we still have careers that might be exceeding six figures. And if you haven't experienced it yet, you guys, there's a cap to how much Social Security you can pay every year.
There is.
And as that, yeah. And as that, and I learned that one day, I was like, how my paycheck get bigger? What? Oh, that was like, oh, you just experienced it. Yeah, you done tapped out on the Social Security for the month. But for those of us that are six-figure earners in corporate, but are trying to become profitable entrepreneurs, do you have any advice for us, whether it's from an entrepreneurial standpoint or from a tax standpoint, about how we can move in these internet streets to just, be better and grow?
Absolutely. I always say go back to the source. I'm a very resourceful person. So when I say go back to the source, we need to go to the IRS website, right? Within the IRS website, they have the list of all tax professionals, tax preparers. And within that list, it tells you what license they have, right? Then with the three licenses that I talked about, so obviously you have the state bars that you can check for an attorney. So go to the source. The American Institute for Certified Public Accountants has all of the licenses for CPAs, right? And then you have the National Association of Enrolled Agents that have the list of people with active licenses. Now, here's the other thing. I'll share this little nugget too. The IRS throws all the shade. They have an email every month that tells you the list of tax professionals who have been banned and why. They drop it every month. I'm subscribing. Definitely go on irs.gov and you can subscribe to all of that information. But they are ruthless in these streets and they don't play. And I know one day we're going to get to a point where things are regulated. Hopefully I'm still alive when that happens, but one day it will happen. Now, the other nugget I'm going to drop here, if you don't mind, I like to drop it, at least a couple of strategies for you all to be able to implement, or at least go and research. But when you all are looking for a tax professional or an accountant, or if you're looking for both, due diligence is key. I need you all to interview at least 2 to 3 people, right? You don't need to go 10, 12, all that. It's unnecessary. But interview about 2 to 3 people, because the first person you talk to, man, they sound good. They know what they're talking about. Talk to the second person, then talk to the third person, make your decision. because you don't want to keep bouncing from professional to professional to professional. That's the same thing as going from a doctor to a doctor to a doctor. Who has time for that? Right? Same thing as going from one bank to another. Now you got to change everything. That is so annoying. It's so inefficient. You're not going to be effective at all in anything that you try to accomplish within your tax and financial realm. So that's one. So some strategies I want to drop on you all. And when I share these strategies, I'm not saying go and implement now. Go and do your research, right? I can share nuggets with you all day, but go fact check me. Okay, please do. So what I want to do, share here. So you have within the IRS code, it talks about swimming pools, athletic facilities. For my S corporation companies out here, there is an IRS code that talks about how we can write off a swimming pool, how we can write off a gym, right? And you probably see that in some of your big corporations. I know for a fact that SunTrust, now Truist, within their Atlanta location, they had a daycare, there was a gym, they had showers and all that good stuff. It was deductible, right? So as an S corporation, you have that ability to write that off as well, as long as you meet certain criteria, right? Now, there's another part of the IRS code, which is again, why you have to read it, you have to know it. So there's one code that says, yes, you can write off this athletic facility, this swimming pool, X, Y, and Z, as long as it's on your premises. But then there's another code that says, hey, but it doesn't have to be on your premises. Your employees just need to have access, unlimited access to this, right? So I shared this not to insinuate that for everyone to go out there and get an athletic facility or say I'm writing off my pool in my backyard or my gym. There has to be policy in place, right? So when we're talking about tax strategy, I can drop the strategy, but then I'm going to tell you how can we enforce this strategy to make sure that if you had to go and fight with the IRS, or if you're paying me to fight with the IRS for you, that we have the right documentation in place. So that's going to include your tax attorney or business attorney, right? Your tax strategist. Sometimes you'll need your accountant, you'll need your HR professional, you'll need your financial advisor and planner. Sometimes we need to go and talk with an estate CPA, right? So remember when I said that CPAs are specialized, right? So I can sit here and give you all the strategies all day long and tell you, hey, we can write this off. We can write off your stylist. We can write this off. We can write that off. But there's a way that we have to do it. When I tell you that almost anything you do can be written off, it's all based on industry and location, right? What is the purpose of your company? What solutions are you bringing? And what is needed in order for you to fulfill this vision? So there's so many creative ways that we can do that. I know a lot of women are out here like, oh, I'm getting my makeup done, I'm getting my hair done, I'm getting my nails done. Can we write that off? It's definitely a depends, right? But we have to understand what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it, and where are the cutoffs, right? Because you hear a lot of people talking about, oh, I write off my hair, I write off my makeup. They're just telling you what sounds good. They're not telling you the ins and outs of how they got to the write-off, right? Or what do they have to do in order to write that off? You can't sit here and sway, because if the IRS comes for that audit, right? And we all know that they just received these billions of dollars from Congress. So it's going to increase some audits somewhere down the line. So if you get an audit, you got to make sure you got the documentation to back it up. And stop getting the hookup from the neighbor down the street or from cousin Joe and Jan over there. So just to drop a little nuggets there for you.
I absolutely, truly. And I always tell people, if you have your ducks in a line, don't fear the audit. Welcome it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the key nugget in there as well is you need a team. Mm-hmm. It's a team. It's a team. Now, whether you choose the all-in-one, whatever, there's a team, a financial team. Most people have they have a glam squad. You need a financial squad, right? That's coming through and making sure that your best interests are in play. When she was speaking, I was like, oh, that's why corporate will go ahead and give you that. They always got an athletic facility on hand. But like she just said, in our particular building, we just have access to it. They don't own it. They're like, oh, I have access to it. Y'all are thinking these corporate companies like, these are great incentives. We love our employees. No, I'm telling you, it's a tax break. Anything they do for you is a tax break. I'm a proponent of it. Like, if mental health must now be a thing because they give it to you, which means that it must be a tax break in there somewhere. Because they're not doing nothing just out of the kindness of their hearts. And you need to operate in that same manner. Don't do something out of the kindness of your heart necessarily. That's fine. But there's probably a way for you to write it off. I definitely encourage all my influencers, all of my self-employed people, if you out here, get you a tax professional to show you how to write off your stuff and what is a business deduction for you, because to me, that's all new industries, and you need somebody who is out here in these tax games to be able to apply it, right? So niching down and even having a tax professional that understands your industry is important and critical, not just that they have experience, but if they don't understand how your transactions work or digital businesses work or influencer life work, to tell you, hey, all that free stuff you're getting, got to count it, but then let's do this. If they don't understand all of that, you're going to have a problem. So make sure you get you a team. Tell them how to stay connected with you so that they can begin to learn and grow and know that professionals are important.
Absolutely. I am on every platform you can think of: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest. It is Tax Advise Her. That is TAX, D as in dog, VIZHER. So that's Tax Advise Her, her being me. I also have taxadviseher.com, and I think I missed Instagram, but I'm on there as well. But every platform, I'm on there. I know we got a great series coming up about tax liability, how to minimize that. So definitely tune in for all of that.
Awesome sauce. Well, you guys, if you didn't get a glimpse into the world of why it is that I think that taxes are awesome, then I don't know what you was listening to, because the nuggets was dropped. We gave you all kinds of reasons not to fear taxes, but to embrace it, understand it, and get you a team to help you take it. I'm not gonna say take advantage of, but get exactly what it is you actually deserve. It's not taking advantage of. It's actually strategically doing things in business, and that's what we're here to do, to bring you strategy, resources, and information here on the Corporate Hustle Virtual Summit. So whether you are trying to figure out, all the cool things they got there online, vacations, Hummers, all the things, make sure, like she said, legally, ethically, morally, all the things are in play so that we don't see you having to go to the prison place, come back out and write the books. Okay, because that's what's happening. Okay, we don't want you to have to go all the way to prison to write the book. So instead, just get you the advisors that can, show you the way. That is Ms. Harvey. Tax Advise Her. And I love that. Tax Advise Her, because women, money matters. This matters. This has been another awesome interview for the Corporate Hustle Virtual Summit. I am Demisha Samuels, your launch strategist, your LinkedIn expert, showing you how to unapologetically live in the best of both worlds, where we get money inside and outside of corporate America. This has been an awesome interview, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one as we partake in the 5th annual Corporate Hustle Virtual Summit. Talk to you guys soon.